I remember meeting him, and it was like meeting a rock star, because that's kind of what art is. He's a rock star.
A musical nerve ending.
Passionate.
Inspired everyone.
He's one of the most unique individuals I've ever known.
I think I met Dr. Bartner very early on. He was a colleague, he was a fellow musician, and he was already iconic.
He physically coaches that band.
I become a coach. I said, our football team is playing for the national championship, which means our band is playing for a national championship.
I think Dr. Bartner just embodies, what it means to be a Trojan.
He is an educator.
This man quivers with music.
He exudes an energy and a persona that is just infectious.
And it's just like our football team. They're going up against the best. They want to become national championship. Why shouldn't we become a national championship band?
He uses music to convey that, but there's also a spirit of teamwork and motivation that really motivates young people.
Art had extraordinary expectations.
I just remember my mom saying, "Is that the director, that old man that's on the ladder?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's him. He has a lot of energy." And she's like, "How? He's so old."
He has the energy, he has the experience, he has the persona of one of those people that just can light up a stadium.
He creates a band that really is a mirror image of who he is.
I do know for a fact that opponents that we played in the Pac-12 would play the fight song and Conquest on repeat at practices because of how annoying they thought it was that the band was constantly playing.
If you ever talk to Art during football season, he can't get the sound out because he's hoarse all the time from standing up there on that tower and screaming at the kids.
Freshmen, you've been listening it for 6 days. How can you be tired of trimming the joy?
Dr. Bartner was a student in my class at Michigan, and I have to say that he was in no way outstanding, but he had a great sense of humor, and I will say he had a lot of energy, too much.
I was either going to be a basketball star or the second coming of Miles Davis. I played every sport that's imaginable. To this day, the varsity football coach didn't understand why I gave up football to join the band. Dr. William Ravelli, he was the taskmaster. He was the old Italian stereotype, Toscanini, disciplinarian. He ran the band as a dictatorship.
Ravelli's teaching style now would probably land him in jail. He was merciless and it was personal. He would go down the line and he would pick up the horn and work the valves. And he said, if your band director could see the condition of your valves, he would kill himself. He said, these are disgusting. Look at the dirt. And you are a disgrace to, and he would yell. And there's 100 people in the band. You know, he had a very large band.
And at Michigan, I discovered I wasn't as good a trumpet player as I thought I was. I was never going to be a varsity basketball player. I wasn't even going to make the team. I ended up in music education because I was able to combine my athletic ability with my trumpet ability, and I like to teach. You know, I got along with people.
He wasn't focused so much as a student, but once he got to Davidson, and he was determined, there was not a very good band when he went there, and he changed that. And that scored with Ravelli. In other words, he made the band respectable. It wasn't respectable when he went there. There was a small band and he doubled it or something like that.
As I looked around Flint, Michigan and the area, I saw all these great conductors. I saw these great musicians. And I said to myself, how can I get to the college level. Bob Wojak, who's getting his doctorate at USC, says,
there's a great young guy. He's at high school now, Davidson High School. He's a trumpet player, was a trumpet player, he was studying under Ravelli, and they contacted Art. He came out and interviewed.
I go into Grant Beglarian's office. This is the dean of the School of Music, Michigan graduate. And he says, I hear you're a University of Michigan graduate. I'm going to call William D. Ravelli up on the phone. Now that's when I broke into a cold sweat, because remember, I have this long history with this dictator. Dr. Beglarian talks to him, hangs up, and looks at me, and he goes, Dr. Ravelli said you would do a really good job, but he's got half a dozen guys who can do it better. I was hired.
The band was anemic before he came. It lacked life. It lacked the blood. It did the minimum and didn't have the vibrancy.
We had about 50 people, maybe 60, and it was mostly all music majors. We could only make a U. We didn't have enough people to spell out USC.
The band was primarily band grant people, primarily music majors, all male. It frankly did not have a good attitude.
It was a male band, no women. That was the tradition because of traveling. They felt it was improper for women and men to travel at the time. Well, Art stopped that right away.
They had no identity. There was no reason to go out on that field and work hard. Everybody was, interested in the dollar, free tickets, the goodie bags at the end of the season. There was no purpose for being part of the band. Enter Marv Goo.
Marv Goo.
Marv Goo.
Marv Goo.
Marvin Goo.
October 20th, 1979. And it happened in South Bend, Indiana, when the University of Southern California played the University of Notre Dame in the great game of football.
McDonald's first pass, swings it out for White. White spinning.
Marv understood the meaning of the band, the meaning of the music to the whole collegiate event. It's part of the formula for success, that you have to have a good band or you're nothing. And he really, believed that. I mean, he believed that like he believed what a football was.
Marv was in charge of all things emotional. John McKay was an aloof kind of a leader. Marv Goo took care of everything else. We kind of got caught up in that, and I think Art did too. Art learned a lot about emotional leadership from Marv.
And Marv told me about Art. He let me know that he had something to do with that way back in the day when Marv kind of got him to coach it like a football coach would do it. And man, did he ever.
We got a bunch of tough guys, and they got a bunch of tough guys. We got a great band, because the SC band is now in the stands they've been coming for a couple of years, but they're there and they're playing through the whole game. And we start playing, Fight On, and all of a sudden the team and the USC band became this. And we're hammering Notre Dame and they're hammering us, and it's back and forth, and it's about 21-19 or something like that.
And he literally grabbed me behind the neck. And if you know Marv Goo, he had a fist, it's like a wrench. It was just steel. And he said, Art, I'm going to tell you and show you what a marching band should be.
We beat them 42-23 that day. But the great thing was in the Notre Dame tunnel. The Notre Dame band comes in there and they played the Notre Dame Victory March, but the SC band was right behind them. They got in there and they played Fight On and Conquest like it's never been played before. It was so damn good. Brought the players out of the locker room down there to see it and look at it. And our guys are yelling and screaming, and the band is. Art, you and those guys were fabulous. And I thank you, Art Bartner, and I thank all the band members who've ever played Fight On, Conquest. But I always remember that day of October 20th, 1979. Art Bartner, I love you.
the football team is giving their everything on the field. It's hot, they're sweaty, they are hitting each other. The band needed to have that same level of activity, that same level of motivation, that same level of enthusiasm. I think what Dr. Bartner reinforced with the band is that, look, if the team's out there working and giving everything they have, the band needs to be doing the same.
He is a perfectionist. That's how you become good in life. And what you do is to never accept anything except being perfect. He wants every drill, every note, everything to be perfect. And that's why he's great at what he does.
He wants to just see greatness from this band and from this program.
My induction to USC was showing up to go to band camp. And Bartner wasn't much older than most of us in the band. We were up in the mountains, we were on a dusty field, we were at altitude, you were gasping for breath, even if you were 18, 19 years old, we were still gasping for breath.
Flags were way in the back. It was Idlewild, and it was dusty and dirty and hot, and we were eating warm bologna sandwiches, and we flags were stuck way in the back, so I wasn't quite sure which one he was.
I remember one time and we were practicing and we were supposed to be marking time during the introduction to Fight On. I was in the front row and I wasn't marking time, I was just standing there, and blows the whistle, whole band stops. Mike, why aren't your feet moving? And in front of 90 other people, everybody knew that my feet weren't moving and I was the one that caused them to have to start the whole routine over again.
My parents thought I was gonna quit because I have a history of just like not following through on things. But they saw me out there, like outside in the heat all day, and they're like, she's gonna quit.
I realized it was going to be a challenge. There was, it feels very serious your first day of band camp. Everyone's yelling. Sometimes it's positive yelling, sometimes it's negative yelling. But I learned pretty quickly that if you're yelling, that's, you can usually get by.
It was just clear like how respected he was, and that was something that was really great to see. And I think Dr. Bartner kind of left no doubt like that this was a place for everyone, and that he was very dedicated to making sure that like things were gonna get done, but they were gonna get done correctly. There wasn't gonna be like any halfway of doing things. Like everyone's gonna do everything correct. Like it was our first like time marching, but he was very quick to call you out if you were not marching the style, and I got yelled at.
At the end of my third year, I met a gentleman by the name of Hank Ehrlich. He was the public relations director of Paramount Studios. And they were promoting a movie called Lady Sings the Blues. It was up for an Academy Award. And Diana Ross was one of the stars of that movie. And he said, wouldn't it be great to feature Diana Ross at the halftime of the Rose Bowl?
And she came out to Cromwell Field for the practice, and we were just like, gosh, she's famous, this is big time.
And I'm going, Diana Ross, the Supremes, Motown, with my Michigan background, knew the Detroit scene very well. And so we met for lunch, and we agreed that Diana Ross would sing a tune from the movie.
I'm pretty sure that was the first time that one of the college bands in the Rose Bowl had such a big named artist.
Here's the showman in Bartner. He was willing to take a portion of the time for his first Rose Bowl halftime show and use it with a Paramount picture angle. That showed his ability to be a showman and not just a protective band director.
There was some of the drummers or something they all turned around and choreographed, "Stop in the name of love," and she kind of busted up, and that kind of broke the ice where the band and her were going to make this work. It was just going to kind of gel, and she was amazing.
It was an out-of-world experience.
She came out and just, of course, the crowd went crazy. It was so different for a halftime show because up till then it still was the bands doing their thing, and it got covered on TV. It was like going to a concert, but with 100,000 people.
It was a great bit. It skyrocketed the band's fame. It really did.
She missed the first note, but after that, she was absolutely great. She was a showstopper. And then it became Hollywood's band overnight. It is without a doubt one of the highlights of my career. I mean, it's something you never forget.
It's an everlasting memory. People talk about it all the time. It comes up all the time. So it's always in my mind.
When Mick was in Germany, he was trying to get some sleep, but a parade went by with a typical German brass band and woke him up. And he was obviously upset, but he liked the sound. He liked the sound. So he said to himself, on the next recording, I want to capture that sound.
It was kind of carnival-like because they were really fun. People were running around doing gymnastics on the grass. Stevie Nicks was twirling a baton, so it's very like a carnival type atmosphere.
Tony and I went to a studio in Santa Monica, and that's where we met with Mick and Lindsey Buckingham, who wrote the tune. It was a matter of Lindsey, playing and singing the tune, and Tony writing down the changes as he hears them.
He was conducting the band, and I was holding the chart up to him because we had made so many changes. He had to really look at it, and then he would just conduct the band and make sure we're all on time.
The key guy was Mick. He was playing drums in front of me, and even though I had earphones on, it was Mick that was just kind of pounding the beat with his feet and his body right in front of my ladder.
People knew what USC was, but that kind of made it a world-known university because the song went around the earth 2 or 3 times, so it just put us on the map all over the world.
I watched Tusk go all the way up the charts. This became the title tune of the album. Of course, it became a fight song at the university, and it's become a tune we play at every game. I would have never expected that. Never. Biggest surprise of my life.
Who are we to deserve the USC band to play for us, Stevie, don't be so humble. Well, no, but I mean, really, that's a lot of people playing.
The 80s were the heyday of the masked bands. It was centered around the 1984 Olympics, and everybody who was having a great, sizable event on like a football field had to have a masked band. when David Wolper, another Trojan, called me and said, would you like to direct an all-American college band for the opening of the Olympics? It took me about 15 seconds to say yes.
The numbers here, fantastic. 1,000-voice Olympic choir, 1,200-member drill team. It goes on and on.
Not only was this David Wolper, but they asked Tommy Walker to direct it, who was the drum major of the band, became the band director. They asked him to direct the opening ceremony. So I felt just unbelievably honored.
It was huge. It was just absolutely huge. It was like 800 or more, I don't even remember.
And we practiced for about 17 days out in Pepperdine, and then brought the band into the Coliseum and practiced with the rest of the cast. And it was about a 20-minute Music of America show.
The rich blue California sky providing a backdrop. And even the blimps say, welcome.
This may be hard to believe, but Peter and I saw the dress rehearsal. You ain't seen nothing yet.
It's the first time we've been at the Coliseum. So all 27 buses of this band roll into the Coliseum. Art had us lined up, and he runs the show from the beginning of Music of America. And all of a sudden, you know, as we're performing, everybody stops, and they come to the press box side. By the time we finish, everyone is screaming.
And I ran the trombones. Everybody had a section, but I had 76 trombones. I never had 76 trombones.
In the fall of 1982, I was the director of the All-American College Band for the opening of Epcot. I had started working for Disney during the summers, starting in 1974 in Orlando, directing the All-American College Band, but it was a 20-piece band, one student from 20 schools. It was the genius of Bob Yanni, who was the director of special events. Now, he expanded that concept to a 400-piece band, and it was just knocked the socks off of everybody. This was important because it was the first mass band that I've ever conducted.
To all the people of the world, welcome to the opening ceremonies of Liberty Weekend.
What was unique about the Statue of Liberty rededication is that it wasn't just one event. It was a weekend. It was on Governor's Island looking across at the Statue of Liberty. It was the opening ceremonies of this weekend festivities. Henry Kissinger was there. I mean, senators, governors. I remember Henry Kissinger because I blocked his view. I was standing right in front of him conducting, and John Williams had composed an original piece for those ceremonies.
I used to say, if it turned any multiple of 5 or 10 years old, if it was any international event, if it was any national event, there was a big marching band, and Art Bartner was its director. You're talking from Super Bowl halftime shows, you're talking the Indianapolis 500, you're talking Goodwill games, you're talking Olympic festivals, Olympic expos in Australia. There were stuff even out of the country. Just about every summer, there was some big mass band going on, and Art was traipsing off and doing it.
After the 1984 Olympics, I go back to the college band directors convention in Chicago, just by happenstance. I go in, check in, get my badge, and I go down the steps. And who's the first guy that I run into? Ravelli, holding court. And he sees me, and he comes over and he gives me the biggest hug. Wow. And he turns to his guys, he says, "It's one of my boys." He says, "One of my boys." This is the guy that said that I would never be a college band director. Sometimes a guy who is not as gifted, but works harder and wants it badly, more determined, will end up to be more successful than a guy more gifted and finds everything easy.
Sauered in motion. Koffler looking. Chase throws it into the air.
How did losing to UCLA 8 times? That's awful. I mean, that's just...
I think that first season was a little bit rocky. There were some ups and downs. I do remember the very last game. All we had to do was score a touchdown to win a game, and then Rob Johnson threw that pass into triple coverage.
Johnson in the end zone, intercepted. That's going to take care of that.
We lost in the last second interception in the end zone. That would have sent us to the Rose Bowl. And it's crushing. And, maybe an average person would just walk away dejected. But it was amazing to see that what Art kind of taught me, or taught the band, I guess, was that you got to move on. You can't just sit there and mope.
I think that really articulates our 90s experience was ups and downs. There were a lot of very, very close calls, heartbreakers, but we also got to experience some of the most amazing highs.
I have to say there was a shining moment.
The first Rose Bowl, 1996, against Northwestern.
I remember being close for at least the first half, and then Keyshawn, and then all Keyshawn towards the end of the game.
He's got it. He's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Trojans.
We had a great player in Keyshawn Johnson, and he was, I think he was number 1 in the draft.
Fritz for the extra point, and at 6:08 to play in the third quarter, it is now 31 USC and 19 Northwestern.
This caught Northwestern off guard, and then they had no answer to Keyshawn. We beat them.
It was a great football game, and our guys deserved it.
That's right. Super. Congratulations.
Thank you. Let's go to the band. You
Coach, go to the band.
Coach, hold on a second. It was right after the Northwestern game, and I'm being interviewed, and my first thought, and the team's first thought, is go down and celebrate with the band. The core way that you approach the team was, we are SC, and we're different, and we have to act at the highest level.
John Robinson, in my opinion, is like your favorite uncle. He isn't a screamer and hollerer. He just, sits and observes and then makes his decisions. He's not an in-your-face coach.
I think Art Bartner is responsible for the glue that kind of holds this university together. I think the connection between the band and football are people like Art Bartner and Marv Goo and others that have made that happen.
So there was that moment of glory, but on either side of that, it was gloom and doom. One of the greatest traditions is his relationship with the football team, jock rallies.
And about 1970, I know Art Bartner was around. He was always around the football, and he was really enthusiastic. And the team lined up, and they lined up that one day on Friday afternoon, and all of a sudden, the team went down in the locker room, and I says, hell, we got to change something here. We got to start something going here. I said, Bartner, get your troops and come on downstairs. So he got his guys, come down, there must have been 30 of them, went downstairs in the old gym, and we start playing Fight On, and we had the best damn rally you've ever seen.
I'm a very stubborn, determined guy, and I'm not going to let this fade away because I believe that nothing lasts forever, and this team's going to come back.
Carroll hired even after Trojan Nation rose up Thursday
This is
and
not
loudly
an
denounced the
Urban Meyer,
fax,
Nick
email.
Saban type of big-name college coach.
Wow, wasn't he at New England? Didn't he get fired? Huh.
And Pete Carroll, the story goes, met with Marv, and Marv Goo said, you got to go talk to Art Bartner.
Well, yeah, Art inspired everyone. You know, you had to put up with him roaring all the days across the campus. So many times we used him to inspire us with our rallies, you know, the Friday before the games. I mean, on and on and on. It was the spirit of the band too that was connected to our performance, and you know, like the big game at Notre Dame. You know, the night we won at the end of the game.
Reinert on fourth down, in the pocket, goes down the sideline. It's caught.
That with 80,000 people screaming and going crazy to try to get us to lose, the band stood out. You know, you could tell that they were there down there in the corner and they were doing their thing.
Reinert gonna try to sneak it ahead. He get it in. Touchdown, SC!
They were with us the whole way, and when we won that game in particular, you could hear nothing but them, you know, and the way they responded and were just there in great fashion was classic.
I had already started to think about retiring. And part of my thought process was, I want to go to one more Rose Bowl. I've done this, 16 times, and wouldn't it be great to go to one more Rose Bowl?
I love when it just pops up in my memories and it's just me screaming as the ball kicks.
It's difficult to describe in words. Blurred vision, tears well up in your eyes. It's just emotion.
It was a very upbeat first half. Sam Darnold was hitting all his receivers.
10. Dory Jackson to the backfield, goes in motion. Darnold winds and throws over the middle. It's a touchdown. Looked like he was going to run it, but he threw it at the last second. Deontay Burnett was there for the score.
First half was great. Second half starting to get a little tight, but the band, we didn't give up.
Try to bring some pressure. McSorley steps up, takes a downfield shot for Godwin, who makes the catch and will scamper for a touchdown. First and goal. McSorley running all the way, cuts it back and barrels in.
We keep playing Tribute to Troy. We play Fight On when our offense is coming out. And the philosophy is that what we have are these great fight songs. And the hope is the game will eventually turn around. And lo and behold, the game starts to turn around.
Snap, drifts back to pass, steps up in the pocket, throws over the middle. It's complete in the end zone. It's touchdown, USC. Deontay Burnett with his third touchdown catch of the game, and the Trojans are within an extra point of tying the game.
To watch the second half of that game was essentially to watch a football movie. It was to see the team decide that we will do this.
Seconds remaining on a 3rd and 9. Makes the handoff to Barkley. Back to pass. Winds and throws long. It is intercepted by McQuaid. Return to the 45, the 50, the 45, the 40. Out of bounds inside the Penn State 40. And around the 35-yard line.
We kept going, and each time the team scored a point to get back, everyone just felt like there was hope again.
It's good. USC wins it.
It was just unbelievable. That game is just something that, just those memories. I mean, I was crying at the end of it when we actually won.
We're standing just to the right of the goalpost, and I'm on the ladder, and you're just watching the ball leave, and you're just watching it, and it's like slow motion. And then you go,
USC wins it.
we won. And the crowd just erupts, and the band erupts, and everybody's high-fiving each other. But now I focus, remember, now I can't be celebrating because I still have a job to do. And that's to play conquest for this team. What you learn as being a member of the Trojan football team and being a member of the Trojan Marching Band, you learn to accept these great, exciting, memorable moments, and you get to learn to accept adversity. And I can remember watching Vince Young from Texas run around the right end and score the winning touchdown and beating maybe one of the best USC teams of all time. So I'm standing in the same spot, having experience from as glorious a moment as you can experience in a Trojan football game to the most negative, depressing moment. But the message to these kids, life goes on. You have to address, adversity and learn from it. But life is not full of these great moments. You have to balance the two out, I believe, to have a successful life. Even though they were two different bands, but there were still, two different elements of life that we all have to go through. Before we start, I just want to tell you a little bit about this football team. Here, this team finds out yesterday, just like you guys, that their season has been canceled. Whatever the coaches hand us, we're going to continue this. We're going to be prepared. I always feel that if it's good enough for the football team, it's good enough for the band.
Bless his heart. He certainly wasn't prepared to end his career staring into a laptop. But he took it in stride, and he still pretended as if he was conducting a 300-piece marching band.
2020, which was to be my final football season, I had it all planned out, a great celebratory gala, homecoming, bringing back all the band alumni, and the pandemic set in. Who's gonna beat the Sun Devils?
Trojans beat the Sun Devils.
And from the middle of March to probably for the rest of the year, we have been virtually keeping the Trojan Marching Band together.
Let's add some tribute to Troy to kick it off.
Whoever stand tall, stand proud, because we're Trojan!
We're gonna do some singing. Woohoo! All right?
Yay!
We get to the finish line, they tell me I've won the position, and I was like, yeah! And then I couldn't tell anybody. And I had to just sit on it for a couple of weeks before they finally came in and told the staff all together. And again, you know, this is in Zoom and it is what it is. You know, it's the evening, you know, I'm settling in for bed and it's, you know, the lights are out, I'm waiting to fall asleep and just the thoughts are running through my mind. What is the 10th Notre Dame trip gonna be like under the directorship? Or what is, you know, what's my 10-year anniversary with the program gonna look like? You know, I've already done a decade with the band, what's the next one gonna be? And those are the really exciting times because then I get to think about, those are the moments where I will see the work along the way and I'll see the changes and I'll feel it, and that's really exciting. You have a responsibility to the Trojan family. And you want people to know, coming back to Trojan football, the things they're gonna want to have consistent are going to be the football team and the band. You know, and the team's gonna do what the team's gonna do, but whatever that is, we have to be right behind it.
What advice do I have for Jake? Be yourself. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be William D. Ravelli. That would be my advice. Just be yourself.
It's going to be great. It's really a supercharged.
Well, I hope, number one, that he will keep the traditions that have made this band famous, and then he will gradually turn it into his band.